Hello, 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 beautiful friends. Thank you for joining me today for our masterclass on cultivating mindfulness. And I am going to take probably about 35 minutes. We are going to sneak in a little meditation in there. It's going to be so much fun. So I think most of you know me, but for those who don't know me, my name is Rashmi Shram. I am a board certified family physician. This is my 18th year out of residency, and I am also a certified integrative health coach. I'm also certified to teach a couple of different kinds of meditation as well as Ayurveda, and I practice here and also run my group program, which is called The Power Within. I am the founder of Optimal Wellness, which is a coaching and teaching platform. And so let me allow a couple people in. There we go. And as we do this, hi, welcome, welcome. And let's get this. There we go. Perfect. And so a little bit more about me. So I am the founder of Optimal Wellness, and I am also the mom of two teenage girls. They're both in high school, and I love to speak. And so this was just a couple of months ago. I got to speak at a local wellness fest. And so I love to teach. I run in-person wellness retreats, meditation retreats as well. And once we finish our, at least the teaching part, I'm going to also tell you about what's available with our small group program, The Power Within, which has been a huge success. And I'm so excited to get it started again. And so I like to just start off defining what meditation is and what mindfulness is, because sometimes there are hashtags and there's all kinds of different connotations that come with them. And they're actually both really simple. This is actually a photo of me with my niece and my nephew also about a month or so ago. And they're 4 and 5, and they're just so funny. But really, mindfulness is very simple. It's very, very simple. It's the awareness that arises when we are paying attention to this present moment on purpose, right? Like we're paying attention to this present moment and we don't have judgment. And so when we're paying attention to this present moment without judgment, that's really when we are practicing mindfulness. And there's also a sense of curiosity, right? And so curiosity instead of judgment and paying attention to this present moment. And that's really what mindfulness is. So we still have a few folks coming in. Welcome, welcome, Brenda. Welcome, Martina. Welcome, Atha. It's so wonderful to have you. So that's what mindfulness is, right? And meditation is also incredibly simple. Meditation is just the formal practice of mindfulness. And so we create a formal practice. There are so many valid ways to practice meditation. And so we're actually going to do one of my favorite meditations together today. And it's also simple in that we're moving from a level of activity that we normally live in to a level of stillness. And so in none of these things, whether it's meditation or mindfulness, are we actually learning anything? We're actually unlearning, right? And so the reason I have this photo of my niece and my nephew here is that, so I have teenage girls, and so they've gotten caught up in, all the stress and all the layers of stress that we all have as well, but they're much closer to their mindful selves than I am. Or I'd like to think so, at least. But kids no one has to teach them how to be mindful. They already are mindful. And that's really that ground state that we've all forgotten that we can live in, right? And so they're not trying not to think about this conversation they had an hour ago. They're just not thinking about that conversation. They're not trying to predict what's going to happen in 2 days, right? Like that my 4-year-old nephew, literally, I was like, hey, do you want to meditate with me? And he was like, yeah, of course, let's meditate together, right? And so that's what's so amazing is we don't have to learn something to become more mindful. In fact, it's more of a letting go and a little bit of a removal of these layers of stress that we have accumulated in order to tap in to that inner stillness, that inner silence that's already always there. And so if you guys have questions, you can always type it in the chat. Sharita, welcome. And if there's ideas that come up for you, if you've had experiences with something that I'm talking about, I'd love to know. I want this to be interactive. So feel free to use the chat. And then of course, when we're done, we'll also start to talk as well as far as questions and things like that. Okay. So why are we talking about meditation and mindfulness? Like, why even bother, right? And so this was a 2021 statistic. And I think a lot of you here are physicians as well. And so, of course, the rate of burnout in physicians is much, much higher than 52%. But across the board, all people who work in, at least in the United States, and it probably is higher too, and this was in 2021, said they reported feeling burned out, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like they just could not take that next step. They felt stuck, right? And so that's one of the things that we're going to also talk about, is how this can be an antidote to some of these symptoms. So this is actually a photo of me. This was, so this is my older daughter. They're like 20 months apart. And then I had, this baby too. And like, you can see, like, I was just exhausted and distracted and like overwhelmed all the time. And that's really how I started to get into some of this work as well. And so we know that we live in a distracted world. There's statistics that show that we spend on average, and I'm not, poo-pooing electronics or phones. We're obviously here because we're using electronics, and I'm grateful for that. But, we can take it to the extreme, right? And so in 2021, apparently our usage of our phones, usage of our electronics jumped by somewhere between 20 to 25%, just on average, not for everybody. And that can keep us from feeling more mindful, feeling like we're present, and we can have a million distractions, right? Like, we live in a distracted world. I mean, you can't even go get gas in your car if you're still driving a gas car like me. Without getting an ad, right? Like, there's all this bombardment. And so in this distracted world, it can become like a really slippery slope to feel like we're grounded, to feel like we're in the present moment. We know that even before the pandemic hit, there were already way too many stressors in people's lives, in modern lives. And of course, the pandemic really just kind of added this on. And so over the last 2 years, we've had, not just here, but globally, skyrocketing illnesses, physical illnesses, as far as inflammatory autoimmune illnesses. Emotional well-being is going downward, and mental well-being is, mental illnesses are also on the rise, like exponentially on the rise. We know that chronic stress is also related to chronic inflammation. And we know that chronic inflammation is implicated in so many of our chronic illnesses, as well as acute illnesses as well. And so when you kind of like, you cram all this stuff in, it's almost like, oh, well, we just expect everybody to overwork and be overwhelmed, and burnout is part of the process. But really, truly, burnout does not have to be part of a success story. And that's really what one of my main reasons for coming to meditation are, right? And so I heard a neuroscientist recently talk about the great acceleration. This was somebody talking about focus. And he was talking about how over the last decade, we as human beings have literally accelerated almost everything that we do. So we're talking faster, we're walking faster, we're eating faster, and we're just trying to get it done. And so we forget like why we're here. Are we here to enjoy? Are we here to be grounded? Are we here for some ease? Are we here for connection? All of those answers can get lost, right? And so then what happens when we're so much on the go is we can feel really constricted. And so what meditation and mindfulness can do is ease some of that constriction for us. It can help us to find that abundance that's already there, to find that stillness that's already there. So that's, one of the main reasons, like I said, I mean, here's my photo here where I look like like not great. And so what ended up happening for me over the last, I think this started about 12 years ago, was I was in kind of a really slow churn burnout, really. And that presented as a whole host of things. I was super irritable all the time. I just was like on autopilot all the time. I just moved from one activity to the next. Like I would move from, like the morning hustle and bustle rush off to work, like just really not even be present at work, and then be worried about when am I going to get to leave to go pick up the kids, worried about being late, and then worried about going to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, or ruminating. Like it became a real challenge for me to stay in the present moment. And I wasn't even aware that I wasn't aware, right? And how that presented for me too was I started to get physically sick as well. So I started to suffer from chronic daily migraines. I tried so many different medicines, they weren't helping. And then, of course, it extended into GI issues, it extended into insomnia. And that's really when I came back to meditation. I say came back to meditation because I had been dabbling in it as a kid, not like I was meditating, but I was exposed to it as a child because I grew up in India. And then there was a group of us that were meditating together in college as well, as a volunteer in a psych hospital. And so I had learned how to actually teach meditation. It was part of my volunteer activities there. And then I had just abandoned it completely for, all through medical school, residency, and then certainly the first part of my attending years when I was feeling really burned out. And so when I really came back to it about 10 years ago, I noticed huge improvements for my own self. And, it started off with my migraines getting better. It started off with me being able to sleep better. It started off with me feeling less irritable. And so my relationships improved. There were so many aspects of it that rippled into really every area of my life. And I really needed a community, and I could not find a community. I was not on any kind of social media, which now seems so bizarre because we're all so connected through social media. But I actually signed up to start doing teacher training because I knew that I would get deep dives, and I knew that I would have a community, and that a community would hold me accountable. And if I said I was a meditation teacher, that I would be a hypocrite if I wasn't meditating. So I kind of created an external accountability for myself, not thinking that I would actually be teaching meditation, but really more, hey, I want to learn it. And so let's talk about some of the benefits. And these are the known benefits. There are now thousands and thousands of studies that show that when we begin to have even small, short, consistent meditation practice, that people over and over again report improvements in anxiety, improvements in depression, improvement in those levels of burnout, that overwhelm, that reason that I was telling you about. Sleep becomes optimized. We see decreased inflammation. And by the way, these things start to happen within just 4 weeks or so of starting a meditation practice. The decreased emotional reactivity, the feeling of groundedness, there's an improvement in chronic pain. Those studies actually just take about 6 weeks or so. And then there's certainly increase in focus and productivity. There are even epigenetic changes that we've seen, right? So I graduated from medical school in 2000, and like epigenetics, I don't think was a field. I was not introduced to it then, but it's like really blowing my mind the more I understand it. But really, it's this idea that we're not our genes, that we get to turn on the good genes with certain activities like meditation, mindfulness, exercise, eating high nutrition foods. We get to turn off some bad genes. And so those are all really brilliant benefits of meditation and mindfulness. There are so many others, but like I could spend like 45 minutes talking about those. But what I do notice when I am talking to my meditation students, my clients, is they do actually see these changes within themselves within very, very short periods of time. And that's really one of the main reasons that I continue to really harness my own meditation practice for my own, personal growth, my spiritual growth, and why I feel so passionately about really anybody who's interested to really teaching this and making it really accessible, right? Like demystifying it. And so let's talk about, so we talked about the difference between meditation and mindfulness being this ability for us to pay attention, the awareness that's arising, right? And without judgment. Like judgment can be pretty harsh. We can actually judge ourselves first and foremost, and then that can spread to everything else. And so when we allow that judgment to go just a little bit and just be open, it's the awareness that arises. And so we can take a mindful walk. And so this is a great way. I'm sure all of you have probably done this. I mean, this is how kids live. Like every time I talk about this, I'm like, oh, I'm just talking about my 4-year-old nephew, right? And so A mindful walk is just being unplugged and going outside. Really, it's recommended, even if you live in kind of an urban jungle, if you can find even just a few trees, any kinds of, a fresh air, just being able to look at the clouds, look at the sky, that sort of thing, that can make a big difference as far as feeling more grounded and being more connected. And so one of the things that I recommend doing, if somebody's like, I'm too anxious, I'm too irritated to sit down on a mat and meditate with a mantra or something, then no problem. Let's try a walk. And so we use just a 5-4-3. And you can do this now if you wanted, right? And so one way to ground ourselves is with just our senses, right? We live and we perceive our world through our senses. And so we're constantly creating our world. And so when we look for 5 things that we can see, and so that's the 5-4-3, so we can look for 5 things to see, you might start to notice things even in this room that I usually sit in. I might start to notice things that I hadn't noticed before. And so there's a lot of clarity that can start to come. So maybe just take a minute or even just 10 seconds and notice 5 things in your room. It doesn't have to be anything profound, but just notice them. And then, when you're outside, you can hear all kinds of things. There was actually the recycle truck that just came here. So the 4 is, what are 4 things that you can hear? What are 4 things you can hear? And so there can be a real subtleness. Is there an AC going on somewhere? Is there a conversation somewhere? Is there a bird? This can become really fun when you're outside. Is there an airplane overhead? So just getting still and noticing, it's really fun. And then the next thing is, are there 3 things that you can smell? And if we really get subtle in there, you can kind of smell 3 things. Right? You can do this with really anything. And then what about 2 things you can touch? What are 2 things you can touch, right? So, it can be just your skin, it can be a pen. And when you do that, it just takes 30 seconds, whether you're outside or inside, what you've done is you've just brought yourself to the present moment. And when we're just observing, we're not judging. And so that's a really fast way. If you can do that consistently, just try 5-4-3, or even just noticing things as you're walking, or even just sitting, especially if you're overwhelmed, can really bring you into the present moment. And that can be really powerful. Of course, mindful eating is also a great way to develop our mindfulness muscle, right? And so that can be something like putting away all electronics, putting away all distractions, either sitting with somebody whose company you really enjoy, or just being by yourself, sitting down, taking a few deep breaths, noticing the food, like really looking at the food, again, bringing in all your senses. What does it smell like? What does it look like? And almost imagining all the people that have had to touch this food, that have had to bless this food, and giving them some gratitude, like, my goodness, the farmers, the this, the that, the transporters, all of this, or the chef that cooked this meal. And then notice the colors. And then as you eat, really being present and noticing the textures, the taste, the quality of the heat or the cold, all of those things, that can become a very beautiful way to bring mindfulness into your life, of course. And so mindful movement, so practices like yoga, so yoga asana, which are already tied to the breath and movement and being present and being open, are already mindful movements, but we can move in any way that's mindful, right? Yoga and Tai Chi are 2 ancient practices that have already tied all of this in and said, hey, come practice. This is going to be a way for you to increase your mindfulness muscle, right? And then mindful breathing as well. That's a really powerful way, because the breath cannot be anywhere else. I mean, our mind is the constant wanderer, right? But the breath, it cannot be anywhere else but right here at this very moment. And so each time we bring ourselves back into the present moment, when we become more aware, that's really what mindful practices are. And that's just, it's simple, right? It's really simple, but it's not easy, because we're conditioned for the mind to be in all different places. So I'm going to tell you a fun story. These are wolves. These are like actual real life wolves. And so right before the pandemic, we went on this like hiking trip to Colorado, and in like, I think it was Garden of the Gods. There's like, you guys might know this already, but there's like a wolf sanctuary. And part of the way that they like, they actually make money is they charge people. You can like go for a walk with these wolves, and then, their upcharge is they'll take photos with the wolves. And of course we knew that. So we knew we were going to do that. And so we're doing this thing. It's really fun. And these creatures are big, as you can see, and they're like majestic. They're not like dogs. We have a big dog, and like she looks tiny in front of these wolves, and they're like huge. And I don't know, like 130, 140 pounds or something. And, and these wolves, they were like, people had thought they could take care of them. And of course you can't, like a wolf is not a dog at all. And so then, then they end up giving these wolf pups or wolves or whatever, like to animal rescuers. So I don't know how it happens, but anyway, the sanctuary takes them, and they have to have huge roaming places for them and all this other stuff. So anyway, so we're taking these photos, and there are a bunch of volunteers, right? Like that's how they run their thing. And one of the volunteers, it's like, she's like it's kind of on shaky ground, and she like is talking and not paying attention, and she slips and falls, and she's okay, but she's got like a big gash right here from like, the rocks, and she starts to bleed. And then I'm telling you what, in less than a nanosecond, like the other volunteers, boom, they just swept up that lady. They took her as far away from the wolves as they could. And then the person that had in charge of the wolves, boom, took the wolves as far away from that lady as possible. And it happened so fast, like we didn't even know that it happened. And we were like, oh, what's going on? And so we went over to the lady to see if she was okay. She was okay. And, they had like, they were going to bandage her and stuff, but eventually we found out actually there's like a protocol, and it's on autopilot. The protocol is on autopilot. And it is such that if there is any hint of blood anywhere, that the wolves, I guess, would activate some kind of primal thing, and it wasn't going to end well. And so they knew right away, whether it was like one tiny, speck of blood or a bunch of blood, if the wolves smelled it, it was all over. And so it was like this immediate thing. So my point here is, we don't have to be mindful all the time, right? So what they did there was be on autopilot. Autopilot is not a terrible thing. It's when we end up living in autopilot, right? So the good parts of autopilot, or being able to use less of our brain energy, are like, autopilot gets you to and from work. A lot of times autopilot gets you to the store you want to go to while you're talking on the phone. Autopilot gets you on your walk and you're listening to a podcast. But it's when we're having meaningful conversations, it's when we want to be present and we're not able to be present, that's when autopilot can really backfire on us. And so my point is, you don't have to live in some kind of mindful state all the time, but you can move back and forth with ease the more you practice mindfulness, right? And so what we know for sure is that you get more freedom, more ease when there's more of this process in your life. And so this is literally the crux of why I meditate. I'm not kidding you. Well, there's many other reasons, but, Viktor Frankl said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom, right? So when we actually begin to practice responding to stimuli, whether they're positive or negative, and we know we all have triggers, stimuli, stressors, all of those things, what I have found for me is that space, that liminal space between something that happens to my reaction is just a tad longer. That's really as simple as I can tell you. So then it feels most of the time, not all the time, I'm not perfect, I'm a human being, that I'm able to respond rather than react. And that's really the freedom that gives us more ease. It gives us more of this ability to create the future that we want. Because then what we're doing is we're creating the present moment that we want, right? Like every present moment adds up to the future. And so that's one of the most beautiful ways to practice mindfulness and meditation, is just to kind of become aware of either being aware or not. So we're actually going to meditate together. I'm going to go ahead and ask you if you're able to, so long as you're not driving or something, just gently, get into a comfortable position, and let's do this. Let's go ahead and just get some back rest. Get a back rest if you have one or don't have one. And let's just begin by taking a few deep breaths, just gentle, soft, deep breaths, and just gently closing the eyes. And feet flat on the ground. You'll just simply and effortlessly follow my guidance. There's no need to strain or concentrate, just following the guidance. Let's take a few deep, slow cleansing breaths in and out. With each outgoing breath, just gently letting go of what no longer serves you. Perhaps dropping the shoulders, relaxing the jaw. Noticing the breath without trying to alter it in any way. And today's meditation is known as metta or loving kindness. And in this meditation, cultivate our own compassion, self-compassion, and wisdom. With your shoulders relaxed, with the breath breathing you, I want you to silently repeat the following phrases as I say them. Silently repeat, may I be safe and well. May I live with ease and happiness. May I be free from pain. And now think of and envision a person who loves you very much. It could be someone from the past or the present, someone still in life or who has passed. Imagine that person standing in front of you, sending you all their love. That person is sending you wishes for your safety, for your well-being, your happiness. Allow yourself to feel the warmth and the love coming to you. Feel the comfort of their kindness, of their love. Now imagine that you are surrounded on all sides by all the people who love you and who have loved you. Picture all of your loved ones and friends surrounding you. They are standing, sending you wishes for your happiness well-being, and good health. Bask in the warm wishes and love coming from all sides. You are filled and overflowing with warmth and love. And now picture a person you love, perhaps a relative or a friend, perhaps someone who needs some extra love today. This person, like you, wishes to have a happy life. Send warm wishes to that person. Repeat the following phrases silently. Just as I wish to, may you be safe. May you be happy. May you live with ease and happiness. Just as I wish to, may you be safe. May you be happy. May you live with ease and happiness. Allow yourself to feel tenderness, loving care for their welfare. And now think of an acquaintance, someone you don't know very well, toward whom you don't have any particular feeling. Maybe a neighbor or someone you know from work. Send all your wishes for their well-being to this person, repeating these phrases silently. May you live with ease and happiness. May you be safe and well. May you be free from pain. And now gently expanding your awareness. Imagine radiating your warmth and your love to all beings all around the world. Picture the whole globe in front of you as a little ball. Feel the love you are overflowing with, moving through your body and out through your heart and into the universe. Repeat these phrases silently. May all beings be safe and well. May all beings live with ease and happiness. May all beings be free from pain. Imagine reaching every living creature until you feel the profound interconnectedness of us all. Now, just gently returning back to your breath, still keeping your eyes closed. Just gently noticing the inflow and the outflow of your breath. Putting your attention at the level of your heart and bringing in gratitude for yourself for creating this space in your very busy life. Now just taking a few deeper breaths, coming back to the body, perhaps wiggling the toes. And just as you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Namaste. So that kind of meditation is known as metta or loving kindness. It's, I think, a few thousand years old. It's one of my favorite ones to practice. There are a lot of other meditations that we practice as well. So I'm so glad you all are here for that. So I want to tell you about what we do inside the Power Within. It is my signature small group program. It has been incredible, just absolutely incredible. And so we open doors on 5/6, we start on 5/20. And so it's really a coaching program, but it's also a meditation program. And what we do is we empower really busy women. So almost everyone inside there they are, doing like 12 or 13 things in their lives, are very, very, very busy. And we kind of get them in there and we tumble around and they come out so much more vibrant. They've had so much more personal growth, professional growth, so much more fulfillment and contentment. If you're a physician or in medicine, there's CME that's included with this. So what's inside? Like, this is one of the most common things I get. So this isn't really a top-down thought work course, right? Like, it's not even a course. I mean, and of course, top-down thought work is important, but this is actually all encompassing. And so I'm using all of the distilled wisdom from Ayurveda. We are using breath work or pranayam. We are using, doshic wisdom. So mind, body, spirit. We're also using food as medicine, herbs as medicine as well. And so what we're doing is we're transforming the physiology of the body itself, because we're going to go through this Ayurvedic reset that's really amazing. And we're here to optimize your sleep. Even if you sleep well, that's one of the main things that my graduates talk about, is how much, not just faster are they falling asleep, but like how much better they feel, how much more energized they feel. There's emotional mastery. We spend 2 full weeks with emotional well-being, and it's really, emotional well-being is one of the pillars of Ayurvedic well-being. And so we bring all of that in. We do a lot of work within the mind-body connection. And so part of that too is being able to create just the tiniest bits of space. So normally just say 5 minutes a day or so. And I have micro meditations in there. They're all evidence-based. I also have really deep dive yoga nidras that are incredibly transformative. I don't know if any of you guys listen to the Huberman podcast, or you probably do, the Huberman Lab. He's a Stanford neuroscientist, a professor at Stanford. He has had at least 6 or 7 podcast episodes, and his podcast is, I think, one of the top 3 in like globally of all times on just yoga nidra and how he came to yoga nidra practice, and how this is like one of the main ways that he practices mind, body, spiritual well-being. He calls it NDSR, I think. So NSDR, non-sleep deep rest. And he says not because he wants to take the name and make it something different, but because it makes it a little bit more accessible. And so if you want to practice NSDR, then that's in there too. And it is hugely evidence-based. There are neurotransmitter changes. There are, like the host of benefits from these kinds of meditation. And we're just tapping into the benefits, right? Like these practices have been around for 5,000 years. And now over the last 20 years or so, maybe 25 years, we're just now starting to understand some of these things. And so, of course, there's a community. That's the biggest part in what we do, is because we learn from each other. We help each other. We root for each other. And of course, we learn from each other too. And so we are constantly talking about not just class or session, but other things that might be going on and how things are going for people. And so there are guest teachers that are going to come in. Those are a big part of the bonus. So we'll have yoga for mindful movement. We have focused productivity. We have all of these amazing expert teachers and coaches that come inside. And of course, there's way more, right? So I already mentioned CME. So there's CME credit. And so you can use those allotted dollars. That's huge. And really, there's nothing else that I've ever found that is as comprehensive as far as, meditation, neuroscience, all of those things that you're going to get for 12 weeks, right? So we're going to do a summer reset or a detox, whichever one you want to call it, but it's not very severe. It's like how you can work things out in your own home. So you get herbal recommendations. There's practical ways. You can always just take it and use it any other time. There are recipes. I mean, it's really, really fun. And so if you register in the next 48 hours, so we have until we start on the 20th, doors are going to close on the 18th. But if you are on it, if you jump on this in the next 48 hours, there are 2 private one-on-one sessions that are available for you. And those are like crazy accelerators for personal growth, professional growth. And they're worth probably just coming in to begin with, right? And there's a swag bag. So long as you do this in the next 48 hours, there's a swag bag that you're going to get as well, because I do need to get them out. And so right now it is a crazy limited time offer right now for $18.95. I will type in the chat just the link for you, and I'll also send an email out. You can always reach out with questions for me. But it was a huge hit this last 12 weeks. It's been so much fun. And I'm sure you've probably seen some of the testimonials that are out there. But, Dr. Erin Mayfield gave me permission. She typed out this just literally, I think, a couple of days ago. And so she said this. She said, working with Rashmi in The Power Within has been amazing. She is a wonderful coach, and the course material is fascinating. And she's certified in lifestyle wellness. She's an incredible physician. And so Dr. Erin, who wrote this, she said, she helped me identify my negative inner voice, and it was life-changing. Thank you, Rashmi. I mean, that's a big deal. If you can have a transformation and aha movement like that, that's incredible, right? And it brings me tears. Dr. Michelle Quirk, who also just graduated, they're actually going to be continuing with me in the monthly membership, said this recently too. She said, it's an amazing program. I learned so much in such a short time. The ripple effect to the rest of my life has been deeply felt. And then Holly, who is she also wrote a beautiful testimonial for me. She really talks about how there are so many fundamentals to living a strong, fruitful, beautiful existence that come from taking this course. Whether it's understanding the impact of meditation on the trajectory of daily life, or learning how to breathe to reduce stress, or living with gratitude as a practice, or incorporating food and herbs as a function of caring for our well-being. This course is a life course, she says. It's for every person who's interested in living their best life now as a multi-dimensional human being. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about this. I mean, there's actually several video testimonials as well. So there's there's nothing more I can say other than how brilliantly they're able to articulate about the power within. And so I always want to remind people, look, are there podcasts, are there books you can read? 100%. That's how I got so messy. It took me like 5 years between, one thing and the other until I found a group that I could actually do things with, right? So it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you wish to go far, go together, right? And so that's what's really beautiful about this. And so I am going to stop our share. I'm going to stop our recording, and I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask me questions.